Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Pacharczyk. I got a lot to cover here in a short time, so I'm going to ask you to keep your answers clear and concise, if at all possible. As I'm sure you're probably aware, I represent southern and eastern Ohio, and the coal mining industry is a vital economic driver in my district. And this proposed stream buffer zone rule rewrite could potentially shut down 3 coal mines in my district, resulting in the loss of 1,300 direct jobs and over 10,000 indirect jobs, while simultaneously reducing coal production in Ohio by 55%. Now, this is not only going to devastate parts of my district because of the job loss, but it's going to cause electricity rates in Ohio and the Midwest to skyrocket. And I'm looking forward to some serious and truthful answers from you today about this action over the last 2 years and what it's going to result in. How can you say that the rewrite of this rule is to take into consideration the environment and what's best for American society and our energy policy? I don't see the wisdom in further bureaucratic regulatory overreach that will destroy thousands of jobs, reduce coal production, and ultimately result in skyrocketing electric rates. Explain to me the wisdom of how that fits into what's good for America and what's good for our energy policy.
We do not yet have a proposed stream buffers protection rule. We are in the process of developing that. We do not know what's going to be in that rule yet, so any numbers or any anything else are pure speculation without a basis.
Okay, well, it's not speculation, Mr. Director. It's the result of the study that was done by the contractor that you hired and since released. That's where those numbers came from. So let me get into that. I'd like to point out that, as has been noted, this previous stream buffer zone rulemaking process took 5 years, 5,000 plus pages of environmental analysis, and 40,000 public comments. Yet you assert that this 1.5-year process that you folks are going through now is more deliberate and more complex and more comprehensive than that. Explain.
In the previous process, that was 5 years. It was done and totally within the department with its resources. In the process that we've engaged upon, we were using internal resources and outside contractor resources to prepare some of the information in a more expedited fashion on that. And from the standpoint where that document was not released by us, that was the first working draft of the contractor, and it was a very preliminary document.
Has there been any negotiations and settlement agreements with the environmental groups that challenged the original 2008 rewrite? Yes or no?
We had a meeting with the
yes or no? Have there been negotiations and a settlement?
We had a meeting with the plaintiffs where...
has there been a settlement with those environmental groups?
There is a settlement agreement.
Okay, there's a settlement. Let me move on.
Let me...
As we stated in the 2008 rule that took 5 years, why... wait a minute, I'm sorry. Let me move on to the contractor. Can you explain the process by which you hired Polu-Kai Services in June 2010? Was this a competitive bidding process for this contract?
Yes.
Okay. Can you walk me through so at the time that you hired them, obviously you felt that they were qualified to do the work, correct?
We used a competitive process. At
the time that you hired them, you felt that they were qualified, or you wouldn't have hired them, correct?
Based on the documents they provided, they made the impression that they were the best qualified.
I'll take that as a yes. Now, can you walk me through the process of terminating? You said it was of mutual interest. I don't want to know what Polu-Kai's mutual interests were. I want to know what the Department of Office and Surface Mining's mutual interests were in terminating that contract. How did that fit into what's best for America and our energy policy? What were your interests in terminating that contract?
The contract was ended at the mutual agreement of the parties.
No, I want to know what, okay, you said it was based on mutual interest, and what were your mutual interests, and why did you want that contract terminated?
From the standpoint of the working relationship that we had with the contractor.
Did you ever speak to anyone in the executive office of the president about the devastating effects that this potential rule rewrite or the results that Polokai had founded? Have you talked to anyone in the executive office of the president? Because he says we're supposed to be creating jobs, not destroying jobs. That's what he says. But clearly that's not what this rewrite is going to do.
It is premature to speculate what this rewrite will do because we do not yet have a proposed rulemaking.
So the contractor that you hired that you felt was qualified, that produced results of a subcontractor that was experienced in the industry, so you don't find credibility in what your contractor provided, correct? They're the ones that said that this could destroy jobs.
We, as part of the rulemaking process, it is important for me to have an understanding of the basis in the documents on that. In working through that, it was our determination that it was in the mutual interest of both parties that we end the working relationship.
I realize I'm over my time, Mr. Chairman. Let me just end by saying this. I find it incomprehensible that anyone could determine that this process is in the best interest of America, America's energy policy moving forward, and the President's stated goal of creating jobs. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next questioner, and that would be Representative Landry of Louisiana.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield some time to Mr. Johnson so he can finish his remarks.
Okay, well, thank you to my colleague for giving me a little more time, and that way we're not quite so rushed. Let me get back to. Have you spoken to anyone in the executive office of the President since about the mutual decision to terminate Polokai?
The decision was a mutual agreement of the Office of Surface Mining and Polokai Services to end the working relationship.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit more time to go back to answer that question. What was your office's interest, and why did you want to terminate that contract? Did it save money?
We did not terminate the contract. It was in the mutual interest of both of the parties that we agreed to end the working relationship.
Yeah, but you wanted results out of that contract. I've served in the United States government in the Defense Department for over 27 years. We don't terminate contracts unless we either get what we pay for, which is a good use of taxpayer dollars, or the contractor's not delivering. So explain to this panel, please, what was your interest in terminating that contract?
Again, we did not terminate the contract. We had certain expectations.
Did the contract end?
By mutual agreement of the parties.
Well, that's a contract termination, Mr. Pacharczyk. Under whatever terms you want to call it, that's a termination. It might not have been termination for cause, but it was a termination. What was your interest in terminating the contract?
We had contracted for certain services, and over the course of the time period, there were work products which we received from the contractor that met our expectations, and there were some work products where they did not. And
explain which ones did not.
At this point, it's our best interest that we think makes more sense to move forward rather than to getting into information and things that have.
But you had a reason for terminating that contract. I would like to know what work products from that contractor were you not happy with? Did it happen to be the statistics on the number of job losses and the potential production of coal reductions that would result from this action?
The numbers that were provided by the contractor were not the basis for the parties mutually agreeing to end the working relationship. Okay. There were a number of other factors that got involved. As under any contract, I think if you're aware that sometimes things develop differently through the course of the contract than either of the parties had anticipated.
Well, clearly you're not going to answer my question about what your interests were in terminating the contract. And, I find that disturbing, but, that's up to you. It seems clear to me that before this hearing today that there was collusion at some level between certain members of the Department of the Interior, OSM, and outside groups to change the 2008 stream buffer zone ruling without respect to the lengthy 5-year process that led to that rulemaking, and that this stems from their disgust with the coal mining industry as a whole. Unfortunately, with your testimony today, I have no reason to believe that this was not the case. It seems to me that certain people at OSM and at the Department of the Interior were going to change this rule without respect for the impacts on the coal mining industry and the economy as a whole. And in my opinion, Mr. Director, that is just absolutely wrong. I'm deeply concerned with the process and the actions of OSM over the past 2 years, and I can assure you that I will continue to closely monitor this issue in the future, because the jobs and the livelihoods of the thousands in my district are on the line with this rule rewrite and are very much of a concern of mine. I was able to get an amendment in our first continuing resolution that would have prevented funding for you to complete this process. And if I have the opportunity, and I'm going to look for it, I'm going to reinsert that amendment so that if we can influence your inability to implement this, I'm going to do so. And I hope that you, OSM, and the Department of the Interior keep those people in mind that are going to lose their jobs and that are going to experience these skyrocketing electric rates with this rulemaking process. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.